Within Borderlands 4, over the past few weeks, we have seen buffs to numerous weapons, and today guys, I bring you the best 5 in my opinion. These are the 5 best legendary weapons after the latest patch update. Let's go. How's it going guys? My name is DPJ, and if you do enjoy the video, leaving a like really helps me out, and if you like what you see and want to see more, be sure to subscribe. So many weapons have been buffed over the past few weeks to bring them into line with other weapons across the board, and what I will say is I'm testing these out on my Harlow build, which I know will make a difference to damage output, but the simple fact is I've tested all these weapons, so I feel I'm in a good spot to realise what's actually good here and what's still average. Also, with the changes to Harlow and the way my build is set up, damage output here can sometimes switch to that radiation no matter the weapon's standard element, especially when my action skill is indeed active, so do keep that in mind. So let's get into it guys, and first up on my list of top 5 best weapons since the latest patch update in regards to weapons that are being buffed, we have the Convergeance. So the Convergeance has had its base damage increased by 25%. Now the reason I have this on my list is because, to be honest folks, I've always liked this weapon. For me on my Harlow build, this weapon was already quite decent. Seeing a 25% damage increase has simply made this thing now an absolute monster for me. Now what I will say is, the way my Harlow is indeed set up, weapons that can shoot quickly and spray out those projectiles much faster will always be great with my build. But in that regard, from an outside point of view, I can definitely see why this weapon could have been a little lackluster on other Vault Hunters and builds. So what does this weapon even do? Well, it has on it asymptotic, I believe that says, but with there being no description here, it's still quite clear to see what the shotgun does indeed do. So when a shot hits a target, it spawns in 3 additional projectiles that home in on said target or nearby targets, nearby enemies, and this thing right here guys does amazing things with the right setup, and it's why I had to add it to my list. Again, even though this weapon has been buffed, it was quite impressive beforehand. And another thing to add, I've used every weapon that has been buffed. Most are seemingly still pretty average, but this one is absolutely great for me. So yeah, so how do you get this weapon guys? Well, it drops from the boss of Bramblesong, who can be found right here on the map. Next up guys, we have the Bonnie and Clyde. So the Bonnie and Clyde's base damage has been increased by 40%, and Pair of Thieves, the bonus damage granted here, is increased to 150%. This was previously 100%. Now I will admit, this isn't a weapon I really tried pre-patch. If I did, I definitely don't remember it, probably why it's been buffed. Now as I mentioned earlier, weapons that shoot quickly seriously suit my build, and this weapon is one of them weapons. Now if I'm honest, assault rifles across the board can be very good. Not all of them, I mean the Star Helix also received a buff, but that still seems pretty average for me. But this thing, man, it's powerful. The only thing my version of this lacks is its clip size. I'm pretty certain it's got a small clip across the board anyway. I think mine's got 18 shots in it. I mean, if this was extended, it would be a broken ass weapon for my Harlow build. But also not at the same time, many builds across the board in this game, this won't be an issue with. So this thing has on it Pair of Thieves. On kill grants a plus 150% damage increase to the weapon's other mode and refills its magazine. Now I have to admit, the shotgun side of this weapon, it can be decent again if it's got the buff to it, but it isn't really something I find myself even looking to even use. But what I will say is, it's a great way to gain that damage on the AR side of this weapon, so yeah. So the Bonnie and Clyde is a weapon that drops from Directive 0, who can be found right here on the map. Next up guys, and on my list of top 5 best weapons is the Aegons Dream. So the Aegons Dream base damage has been increased by 35%. And here we have another assault rifle, which I will say is up there being one of my favourite weapons in the game as of right now. It has a decent rate of fire, it now has great damage, it's got a decent magazine size too, all which benefit my Harlow build. But it also has on it prophetic, I believe that says. What this does is it shoots both incendiary and cryo in alternating bullets. Very obvious when you actually look. Now I do believe this to be a weapon that's in reference to Game of Thrones, the Game of Thrones books of Song of Ice and Fire, referencing King Aegon Targaryen, and obviously the Ice and Fire makes sense. And to be honest, it works perfectly in sync with my build. Because of the cryo and incendiary elements this thing puts out, it actually makes my build a little bit more efficient. A great weapon for me to use while my action skill isn't being used, while my action skill isn't active, because when my action skill is active, which you'll see in the gameplay in the background, these projectiles turn into radiation and the damage is through the roof. To be honest guys, before the changes to Harlow, I think this thing would be an even better weapon for my build, but yeah, it is what it is. So how do you get this thing? Well, it drops from the boss of Horus, who can be found right here on the map. Next up guys, we have the Lucians Flank. So the Lucians Flank, so its base damage increased by a 50% and its recoil reduced slightly. Now using it, I will say this is definitely up there in my top 2 assault rifles in the game. It ain't quite taking the crown from the one bow combo, but it is definitely up there. Now what I will say is, although testing its double barrel mode definitely deals a less damage per shot, but with the increased fire rate, I definitely feel DPS wise it's much better. So the Lucian's core has on it trample. Critical hits refill up to 2 ammo into the gun's magazine, which can be amazing people, as I think you can imagine. And this is an assault rifle that also fires super quickly, perfect for my build, has a great magazine size too, perfect for my build, and now it's got that damage increase, again it's perfect for my build. You can see the damage output this thing can indeed do now. So this Lucian's Call is a weapon that drops from the bosses of the Meathead Riders, who are the bosses of the old scrape Ripper site found right here on the map, people. So come here guys, if this is something you're interested in, you know what to do. Okay, so we are now at that number 1 spot, and the very best weapon, actually one of the best weapons in the game right now, if you include them all, is indeed the 7th Sense. So what's actually happened to this guys is the 7th Sense orb damage has been increased by 250%. Now what I will say about this weapon is, I was told prior to the buff that this was already a half decent weapon, but now this thing is on a whole different level, to a point of me thinking it's actually, as I said, the best pistol in the game. It's definitely also, in my opinion, one of the best weapons in the game. The damage this thing is capable of now is off the charts. Personally, with my Harlow build, as I mentioned earlier on in the video, I look for those weapons with those high rate fires, those big clip sizes, etc, etc. ARs are perfect, but this thing is just unbelievable. I don't think there is an assault rifle in the game, in my opinion, that works better with my build than this. Not even the one bow combo. I think the Bod shotgun is probably the one better weapon for my build over this, but other than that guys, I can't think of anything. But this thing for a pistol is just atrociously super powerful. It won't one tap every boss in the game, but it's almost doing that for sure. It does absolutely obliterate them. Now I could change up my build to make this thing even more ridiculous. In fact, my previous build I was using was basically an infinite ammo build, an infinite crit build. I was basically regenerating that ammo on that crit hit, which would be devastating here, because how this thing works guys is its main actual attribute is Hitting enemy spawns those orbs that float upward and then home in on targets on reload. With an infinite ammo build, people, or one where you can actually stack ammo to a point of being more than 8. What this weapon's, I think it's either 4, 6 or 8 this weapon can drop with, but I mean if you can stack this to like 20 shots, which I could do previously, and having all these orbs homing on targets would absolutely obliterate, it really would. I mean these orbs do absolutely massive damage output now. So yes, if the 7th sense is something you're interested in, this weapon drops from Vioted and the Experiments, who are bosses you unlock after first completing the below the surface side mission, which can be found right here. Upon doing this side mission, Vioted and the Experiments can be found right here, people. But yes, the 7th sense is definitely the best of the weapons that have received a buff over the past few patches. Okay, so we'll quickly check out other weapon buffs. So the Rowan's Charge. Its base fire rate was increased by 100% and its charge recoil reduced slightly. I mean this is an okay weapon for my build. If I did a top 10 this would probably sit 7th. So the Bugbear had its base damage increased by 40% and the Rotary Gun max damage increased to 200% from 100%, which is still good. Again, a decent weapon. Just missed the top 5, I'd probably put this at 6. Okay, so the Gamma Void, this is a Marijuana legendary heavy gun. This now increased radiation damage to enemies inside the Singularity, and this thing's base damage increased by 450%. The Singularity duration has been decreased to 6 seconds, it was previously 10 seconds, and radiation damage amp increased to 50% from 40. Now what I will say is guys, this just didn't work for me. I don't know what it was doing, but it just seemed to like it just didn't work. It seemed as though it made enemies immune to radiation damage. It could just have been a me thing, but I ain't sure. The Ravenfire base damage has been increased by 25%. The Ruby's Grasp base damage been increased by 50% and its fire rate increased by 25%. The Bully's drone damage increased by 50% and the Bully's base damage increased by 50%. The Rangefighter's base damage been increased by 30%. The Queen's Rest spawn chance increased from 30 to 50% and its fire rate has been increased by 50%. The Howlwalker's base damage has been increased by 30% and it's been made an incendiary weapon now. And then we have the Star Helix, which had an increased fire rate buff of 33%. But again, upon me using this guys, it still felt quite average. But there we have it for another Borderlands 4 video. Have you used any of these weapons? A post patch, a post buff? Let me know your favourite down below in the comments section. Guys, if you enjoyed the video, leaving a like really helps me out. If you like what you see and want to see more, be sure to subscribe, and hopefully guys, I will see you on that next one.